I remember the exact moment Mia laughed at my ambitions. We were sitting on her cramped apartment couch, cheap coffee cups sweating between our hands. "Seriously, Waji?" she scoffed, leaning back. "You think you're going to build some empire? That's impossible." Her words cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to argue, to explain, but all that came out was a bitter laugh. "Impossible ou?" I said, forcing calm over the heat rising in my chest. She rolled her eyes, twirling her hair. "Look, I'm just being realistic. You should, I don't know, focus on something normal, something achievable." I swallowed hard, trying not to let the sting show. "Normal isn't really my thing, Mia. You knew that." She shrugged, dismissive, the corner of her mouth curling. "Yeah, but I thought you'd grow out of it." "Guess not." I wanted to scream, but instead, I remembered Sam's voice echoing in my head. "Keep going. They don't get to define your limits." I glanced at him in the flashback, grinning like he always did. Sam had believed in me since day one, never questioning, never laughing at my plans. That unwavering faith felt like a lifeline in the middle of drowning in her disbelief. "You know," I said, my voice steadier now, "one day you'll see. You might even work for me." She laughed again, sharper this time. "Ah," as if, "that'll be the day." I forced a smile, but inside, a fire ignited. The hurt twisted into determination. Every subtle red flag, every dismissive glance, every cutting word she had thrown at me over the years, they all became fuel. I stood there, watching her chatter about trivial things, feeling both the ache of rejection and the surge of ambition. I promised myself, quietly, fiercely, that I'd prove her wrong. Not for revenge, not for pride, though both lingered, but to show that my dreams weren't small, and neither was I. And somewhere in that mixture of anger, longing, and hope, the slow-burning journey began. I didn't sleep that night, not a wink. The text on my phone burned itself into my brain. "I've been seeing someone else. And your little plans? Hilarious. Mia." Betrayal wrapped in mockery. My chest ached, stomach churned, and every thought was a razor slicing through what remained of trust. I paced the apartment, fists clenched, trying to chase away the nausea. Emma knocked softly on the door. "Waji, are you okay?" Her voice trembled, but there was quiet strength behind it. "Yeah," I muttered, though my tone betrayed me. "I'm fine." She didn't push. She just sat with me, letting me unravel in silence. Her presence was like a calm anchor in the storm, and I hated that I needed it. The next day, I saw her at the cafe near my office. My face burned with anger as she sipped her latte, pretending nothing happened. "I can't believe you," I said, voice low but sharp. "You cheated, and you laughed at my career behind my back." Mia smirked, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "It's not a big deal, Waji. You're overreacting." "Overreacting," I snapped, hands shaking. "You ruined everything I thought we had. How can you be so?" Don't even start." She cut in, cool and detached. "I have no apologies. I don't owe you anything." I wanted to scream, throw the cup, shake some sense into her. But the rage twisted into something quieter, more dangerous. A vow. Later, Lucas cornered me in the office. "I heard about your little heartbreak," he sneered, voice dripping with amusement. "Hope it doesn't mess with your work or your reputation." I stared at him, a mix of disgust and contempt. He was going to be a problem, but not today. Not yet. Back home, I stared at the ceiling, remembering every laugh, every dismissive glance Mia had ever given me. The betrayal cut deep, but beneath it, something stirred. I wouldn't stay broken. I didn't have a plan yet, didn't know how to rise, but I would. This fire inside me, fueled by anger, hurt, and a stubborn refusal to be small, would be my weapon. Sleep didn't come that night either, but the decision did. I was done letting her define me. I threw myself into work like it was oxygen. Nights blurred into mornings, whiteboard markers scratching out ideas faster than I could think them. My little startup was born in a cramped corner of my apartment, but every small win, a client signed, a prototype built, felt like proof that I could rise. "Waji, you need to pace yourself," Sam said one evening, leaning against my desk. "I get it, but don't burn out chasing." "What? Karma?" I shook my head, not looking up. "It's not just that. It's proving I can do it. That I'm not small." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Just don't lose yourself in the fire. Revenge won't build an empire." "I know," I muttered, though a part of me didn't. Mr. Patel entered my life shortly after, a mentor with a sharp suit and sharper mind. "Stop thinking in corners," he said during our first meeting. "You're playing checkers while the world is playing chess. Bigger moves, bigger vision. Don't let a personal grudge cloud your strategy, but don't ignore the fire either." His words hit harder than any lecture I'd ever received. I spent that night sketching out plans that stretched past my small apartment, past my first clients, past the bitterness Mia had tried to chain me with. And then, of course, there she was. Social media, glowing, laughing about her freedom, tagging friends I didn't even know. I scrolled, fists tightening. Rage, sharp and hot, collided with determination. "Still thinking about her?" Emma asked quietly one evening, sitting beside me. Her gaze steady, her voice calm. Every second, I admitted, voice low, "But I'm trying to make it fuel me, not control me." "You're stronger than you think," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "Just don't let her happiness or arrogance be the reason for yours." I nodded, feeling the truth in her words. The tension between revenge and growth pulsed in my chest. But unlike before, it didn't paralyze me. Pushed me forward. Each client call, each prototype sent, each idea I pitched was a step away from heartbreak and towards something bigger. My empire, my future. Mia's laughter could sting, but it no longer had the power to define me. I was rising from the ashes, fueled by loss, yes, but more by ambition, resilience, and the fire to survive. Years had passed, and my startup had grown from a cramped apartment corner to a small, rising empire. Each day brought challenges. Competitors trying to undercut me, deals falling through, self-doubt whispering that I wasn't enough. But every setback felt smaller now, every victory sharper. "Waji, you've really built something," Sam said one evening, leaning back with a grin. "I knew you would, but even I'm impressed." I smiled, though my mind was elsewhere. It's not just about the work. It's about everything that pushed me here. That everything included Mia, of course. I heard through the grapevine that she'd lost her job, her arrogance and carelessness finally catching up. I felt a flicker of satisfaction but quickly shook it off. I wasn't her judge. Karma didn't need my help. "Are you thinking about her?" Emma asked quietly one night. She had this way of seeing through the layers I tried to hide. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "Part of me wants to intervene, fix it somehow, but I also know I can't let her story dictate my peace." Her nod was understanding. "Then don't. Focus on what matters. Your life, your growth." And that's when Zara appeared. Not in a dramatic way, no fireworks, just a simple conversation at a conference. She asked questions about my journey, not the numbers, not the clients, but me. She saw the ambition and the scars, the fire and the restraint, and somehow that made the empire feel smaller and the heart feel bigger. "Most people just see the company," she said, smiling softly. "But you see everything as a challenge, not a threat." I laughed, quietly, feeling warmth I hadn't felt in years. I guess I learned to choose which fires are worth fighting. And yet, the strategic part of me never rested. I began planning a major expansion, one that would indirectly place Mia in the shadows of my growing success. Not out of spite, but as proof that I no longer depended on her approval or presence. It wasn't revenge. It was survival, growth, and the quiet assertion that life moves forward, with or without those who doubted you. I stared at the plans spread across the table, feeling a pulse of anticipation. This move would change everything, and I'd do it with calm precision, letting the results speak while I remained untouchable, steady, and unshaken. The merger finalized last week, and suddenly my company wasn't just growing. It was an empire. Floors filled with new employees, departments expanding, and my name on every boardroom plaque. I should have felt unstoppable. But then HR sent me an email that froze my pulse. Mia has applied for a position, administrative coordinator. I read it twice, then a third time. My chest tightened, and memories of her laughter, the one that once mocked my dreams, rushed back. I called HR immediately. Are you sure it's the same Mia? Yes, sir. Last name matches. References are minimal, they said carefully. I leaned back, hands pressed to my face. Part of me wanted to call her, tell her off, laugh at the irony. Another part felt a strange pang of empathy. She was struggling. When she walked into the office, it was surreal. Mia, trying to look professional, hair pinned back, eyes scanning nervously. Waji, she started, voice tentative. I held up a hand. Let's not do nostalgia. HR will handle the process. She nodded quickly, but I could see her trying not to tremble. My mind churned. Do I humiliate her subtly? Let her know I remember every word she said? Or just let karma handle it? Sam leaned over my shoulder later. You could hire her, make a point or not. Either way, don't lose yourself. I know, I muttered, though the temptation lingered like a shadow. Emma's voice was gentler. Think about what this says about you if you act out of spite. Are you better than her mistakes? Or are you just repeating the same cycle? I closed my eyes, seeing her old smirk, her laughter echoing as she dismissed my ambitions years ago. My stomach twisted. I wanted to remind her, quietly, strategically, how far I'd come. Yet as I watched her, nervous and human, I realized this wasn't about her anymore. Not really. It was about me, my choices, and the empire I was building with integrity, not vengeance. When HR informed me the interview would proceed, I nodded, calm, detached. I would let her try, let her face the consequences of her own actions. And whatever happened, I'd stay on course, focused, untouchable, and rising. When HR called me with the final recommendation, I barely flinched. Mia was qualified enough to be a receptionist. Barely, but I signed the paperwork anyway. It wasn't revenge. It was control, subtle and deliberate. Her first day, she walked in wearing a perfectly neutral expression, but I could see it, her nerves, her calculated composure. Good morning, I said as she approached the desk. Morning, she replied, tone cool, almost mocking. Guess some things really do change. I raised an eyebrow, smiling faintly. Some things, yes. Others are just opportunities to grow. She glanced away, and I felt that tiny, satisfying sting. Her usual arrogance tempered by circumstance. Around the office, minor characters whispered and stared. Carlos from accounting smirked. Wow, that's awkward, he murmured to a colleague. I'm fine, I said quietly to myself, though part of me reveled in the subtle shift of power. No shouting, no spectacle, just quiet authority, and she couldn't undermine it. Mia tried, of course. During a phone call with a client, she slipped a snide remark about my over-the-top ambitions. Excuse me, I said calmly, maintaining eye contact. Please remember your role here. Her smirk faltered, and for a split second, I saw the old Mia, the one who laughed at my dreams, crack under a veneer of professionalism. Later, I leaned back in my chair, hands folded, reflecting. This wasn't about humiliation. I wasn't celebrating her downfall. It was about reclaiming myself, my agency, my peace. The fire that used to consume me now guided me with precision. Even Emma noticed the difference. You look different, she said after visiting the office. Calmer, stronger. You've learned to wield power without losing yourself. I nodded, internalizing her words. I was no longer the person she had hurt, no longer defined by her mockery or betrayal. Every measured action, every controlled response reinforced that transformation. The day ended with Mia filing papers, trying to maintain her usual composure while the office buzzed around her. I watched from my office doorway, a small, quiet thrill rising in my chest. Justice didn't need to be loud. Revenge didn't need to be public. Sometimes the sweetest victory was the subtle kind. The kind where you remained untouchable, dignified, and entirely unshaken. And in that quiet, indirect triumph, I finally felt the high of rising above. Mia's facade was cracking. I could see it in the way she hesitated at the receptionist's desk, hands trembling slightly as she filed papers, voice clipped when she spoke to clients. "Morning, Mia," I said casually one day, leaning against the doorway. "Morning," she replied, tighter than usual. Her usual smirk felt gone, replaced by a careful neutrality. I remembered the nights she mocked my dreams, laughing at every ambition. Her words, sharp and dismissive, had once cut deep. "Impossible," she'd said, rolling her eyes at me in the cafe, brushing off every idea. Now, watching her struggle to maintain composure, I felt nothing but quiet observation. No gluating, no triumph. Just recognition of the subtle karmic justice unfolding. Sam sidled up to me later. "She's finally realizing what she lost," he whispered. "Don't let it tempt you into pride." "I won't," I replied, glancing back at Mia as she answered a phone call, nervous and meticulous. "This isn't about pride. It's about perspective." Emma appeared, offering her usual quiet insight. "Funny how the same person who dismissed you can now only watch from the sidelines. Don't underestimate what you've learned, Waji." Zara's observation hit differently. "It's more than justice," she said softly over lunch. "You're demonstrating control, discipline, a kind of power that doesn't need to humiliate." I nodded, realizing how far I'd come. Each subtle glance from Mia, each slight pause, echoed the lessons of the past. The laughter that once haunted me, the mockery, the dismissal, it now felt hollow. During a meeting, Mia passed by my office, catching my eye. She offered a quick nod. No words, but her expression revealed understanding. She saw my growth, my stability, my unshakable calm. The office buzzed around us, colleagues gossiping quietly, side characters noting the tension, but unaware of the depth behind it. I reflected on how different I was now, how every setback, every betrayal had been refined into focus. I didn't need to shout triumph. I didn't need to remind her of her arrogance. Sometimes, justice whispered instead of screaming. Sometimes, recognition came silently, carried in gestures, in subtle pauses, in the hollow echo of old laughter. Watching Mia navigate her mistakes, realizing her place, I finally felt it. The power of quiet vindication, the satisfaction of transformation, and the serene strength of a life reclaimed. I sat in my office, sunlight spilling across the desk, and felt a strange calm. The man who had paced sleepless nights, consumed by betrayal and doubt, seemed like a different person entirely. Sam popped his head in. "Coffee break? You've earned it." I smiled, shaking my head. "I think I've finally stopped chasing ghosts." He chuckled. "Mia." I nodded once, not bitter, not triumphant, just acknowledging. She's part of the past. Watching her navigate her own mistakes doesn't hurt anymore. It's a reminder, not a wound. Emma appeared, holding a folder of quarterly results. "You've done it, Waji. Look at this. Every client, every milestone. You've outgrown every doubt." I leaned back, reflecting. Every sleepless night, every ounce of rage and grief had been fuel. My startup had grown into an enterprise, opportunities kept multiplying, and I'd built not just a company, but a life that felt untouchable. Zara joined me later, laughing softly as she recounted a client meeting. "I love how calm you are now. You lead with focus, not anger." I nodded, savoring the moment. It took time, took learning to forgive, not for her but for myself, to survive, to grow stronger than I was yesterday. Sam raised an eyebrow. "And what about revenge?" I laughed quietly, a low, steady sound. "Revenge is unnecessary. I've proven everything I needed without stepping into the trap of bitterness." Mia passed by briefly, her eyes meeting mine. No smirk, no arrogance, just a fleeting glance. I offered a polite nod. She had her own path now, one shaped by her choices. My path mine was defined by resilience, clarity, and a quiet satisfaction that no one could take away. Emma smiled knowingly. You're different now. Stronger, wiser, untouchable. Yes, I agreed silently. My reflection in the glass reminded me that the scars were still there, but they no longer dictated my life. They were proof of survival, of endurance, of transformation. I closed my eyes briefly, letting a deep exhale release the tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for years. I had become the man I was meant to be, unshaken, focused, and quietly victorious. No shouting, no dramatic showdowns. Just life lived fully, lessons learned, and a self reclaimed. And in that silence, that calm certainty, I finally felt complete. The office was quiet that morning, the kind of calm that felt like a reward. Mia had left her keys on the front desk, her last gesture as she quietly moved on. I picked them up, held them for a moment, and smiled faintly. They weren't a trophy, not a victory, just a symbol that her hold on my emotions was gone. Zara walked in, coffee in hand, and caught me staring at the keys. Thinking about the past? She asked softly. Maybe, I admitted, placing them back, but only to appreciate how far we've come. She sat beside me, warmth radiating in a quiet way that steadied me. You've built more than a company, she said. You've built yourself. I nodded, feeling the truth in her words. The rage, the heartbreak, the obsessive planning. It had all transformed into focus, resilience, and clarity. I glanced around the office, at the team buzzing with energy, clients' calls coming in, and realized the life I'd created was bigger than any one person or betrayal. Sam popped his head in, still smiling about everything. Huh? I am, I said genuinely. It's peace, Sam. Not revenge. Not obsession. Just moving forward. Emma's voice chimed in from across the room. You've earned it. You've learned what matters and what doesn't. I thought back to every sleepless night, every confrontation, every subtle victory over the past. Mia's absence, paradoxically, made the present feel richer, fuller. Her mistakes left their mark, yes, but they no longer had power over me. Later, Zara and I walked through the office together, brainstorming new initiatives, laughter echoing in the hallways. You know, she said, nudging my shoulder, this feels effortless, like you finally get it, like you're truly here, not chasing ghosts. I laughed softly, a sound free from bitterness. I am, and I finally understand what surviving really means. Not just enduring, but thriving. The keys on the desk caught my eye one last time before I left. A simple gesture, a quiet reminder of closure, of emotional maturity, of self-respect. No gloating, no resentment, just life, fully lived, and a future unbound. I exhaled, shoulders relaxing, heart steady. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I was free, and moving forward had never felt so right. I sipped my coffee, sunlight spilling across the office floor, and felt a weight lift that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. The man who once chased shadows of betrayal and heartbreak was gone. In his place stood someone steadier, stronger, and wholly untouchable. Sam leaned against the doorway, grinning. You actually look peaceful. I didn't think that was possible for you. I smiled faintly. Peaceful isn't something I expected either, but it's earned. Zara joined me, her hand brushing mine casually as she set down a stack of proposals. You've changed, Waji. Not just professionally, but everything about you. I see the calm, the focus, the control. You've really transformed. I nodded, letting her words sink in. It took time, mistakes, heartbreak, and lessons I wasn't ready for at first. But I've learned to survive, to grow, and to thrive without holding grudges. Emma's quiet voice came from the corner. You've shown everyone, including yourself, what real resilience looks like. The office buzzed with activity, clients, colleagues, and opportunities all moving forward. Mia's name didn't cross my mind. Her chapter had closed. Subtle echoes of the past lingered, but they were just reminders of how far I'd come. I no longer needed them to define me. Later, Zara and I walked to the terrace, sunlight warm on our faces. "What now?" she asked, teasingly. "Still planning revenge?" I laughed softly, shaking my head. "Revenge isn't worth it. Karma, life experience, those handled it better than I ever could. What matters now is growth, love, and embracing the future." Sam's earlier words echoed in my mind. "You've survived. Now build something bigger." And I realized they weren't just about business. They were about every decision, every emotion, every step that shaped the man I had become. Even Lucas, our old rival, had started treating me differently. Not because I triumphed over him, but because I embodied stability, vision, and calm authority. The subtle victories had their own power, far beyond humiliation or spectacle. I leaned against the terrace railing, breathing in the city's rhythm. Side characters, friends, mentors, they'd watched, supported, and sometimes marveled as I transformed. Their presence reminded me that growth wasn't solitary. It was shared, celebrated, and quietly triumphant. I exhaled, a soft smile spreading across my face. The past no longer controlled me. The future was mine, full of promise, love, and opportunity. No bitterness, no revenge, just quiet victory.